Hi, my name is John Knoll, and I'm a visual effects supervisor here at Industrial Light and Magic.
And you're the guy who wrote, or one of the guys who wrote Photoshop.
Co-developer of Photoshop, yes.
Yeah. And so you said there's a 20th anniversary coming up?
Yeah, well, as we speak, it's mid-January 2010. Next month is the 20th anniversary of the release of Photoshop 1.0. Adobe's putting together a little celebration of that anniversary, and I've been asked to do a demonstration of an early version of Photoshop. I still have, for reasons that I'm not completely clear myself, I still have a fairly old Macintosh that I've been keeping in storage. It's a Power Macintosh 8500, and I pulled it out because it's got OS 9 on it, and so it can still run the very old binaries.
When Photoshop came out, it was OS 6.5, wasn't it? Or 6.
Yeah, I think
something.
7 may have started shipping.
7 came out in 1991, right?
Okay, well then yeah, it was prior to OS 7.
Yeah. That's how I got my name Scoble, by the way, because I loaded the beta of OS 7 on everybody's machines at San Jose State University, and one of the people who worked there said, "I've been Scobleized, I can't use my computer anymore." That's why I remember that year.
So I had done a reasonably good job of kind of keeping a historical archive. I pulled out one of my old backup disks, and I have versions of Photoshop going all the way back to the original Display program. I booted up Display. Display actually will run, sort of. I mean, you can boot it up. You can bring up the About box. You can see what's in the menus. Unfortunately, I think the API to the memory manager changed because anytime there's an attempt to allocate memory, it just gives a out-of-memory error. So you can't actually do anything. You can't actually display an image with it, which is too bad. But at least, hey, I can still boot it up. And then I have some older versions. I think that the demo I'm going to do at Adobe next week, it's actually going to be 0.93.
Wow.
Which, I think is close to the version that I originally demoed it at Adobe to start the negotiations for them publishing it. So.
How much RAM is on this machine?
The one that I'll do the demo on?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not that old. I think it dates back from 1995.
Yeah.
So I don't know, probably has 16 megs of RAM in it.
Megs, not gigs. Megs. Right. And Photoshop ran in the original Photoshop. How much RAM did that need when it came out in '90?
As much as you could give it.
Yeah.
I mean, it had a virtual memory system for paging the images off a disk, but.
I remember Steve Wozniak showed me off his new RAM drive back then, '91. He bought a 400 meg RAM drive, cost 40 grand, and he bought it just to run Photoshop. And
wow.
he had a $40,000 dye sublimation color printer, one of the first in Silicon Valley, and now a $70 printer does a better job. That's crazy.
Yeah, the first hard drive I ever owned, I got from my Macintosh Plus, and it was a Super Mac XP20, 20 megabyte drive. It was $750. Sounded like a jet engine about to take off.
Yeah. So what are you doing here now at ILM?
I'm working on a technical test for an upcoming maybe movie, and it's depending on the success of the test, the movie will either get a green light or not. They want to demonstrate that it's possible, and beyond that, I'm not really at liberty to comment on it.
Very cool.
We decided, well, if we can't be first, we absolutely have to be best, and so we redoubled our efforts to make sure that all the algorithms that are in there, the resize and the rotating, all those were as fast as they could possibly be and as high quality as they could be, so that if somebody compared our product with somebody else, ours would always come out ahead. And I think one thing that helped is that I use these tools. And
even today, even on something like that?
Even today, yeah. I mean, now everybody uses it, but at the time, I had started tinkering around with computer graphics, and I was starting to do a little work over in our computer graphics department. And so I started actually using this tool in production. And when you're a user, when you're really using it to try and make imagery, that you develop a different focus about what's important in the application. And I was constantly pushing on workflow things and additional features, improving the interface. And I think that shows in the product. I think it was a better product because one of the developers is an artist and uses it.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was walking through ILM once, back in your pre-Photoshop, and you handed me a data sheet and you asked me if I knew any software developers. How important was it that you hooked up with Adobe? Did you try and see if Apple was interested? Or?
Yeah, actually.
Probably I turned them down.
No, well, here's
what year was it when you approached Apple?
Well, what
Photo editing
was,
is a fad, right?
Was when I started at ILM, I was a contract employee. I was not actually on staff. So, those of us who are job to job, hopefully, it works out that one show ends and another one ramps up, and you sort of transition from one show to the next. And that generally was true, but every once in a while, a show would end and then there would be 2 months before the next one would start. And I'm sorry, but you're on your own. And I'd worked in the freelance world prior to that, so I was used to that situation. It's a little harder in San Francisco than it is in LA, because in LA there's so much production going on that it's very easy to jump around. But I got to know some of the commercial production world up here, and I got hooked up with a director named Trip Groover, who did a lot of television commercials that had a high concentration of visual effects in them. And I had some of my own motion control equipment, and I got hooked up with this guy, and we did a bunch of commercials together. And he called me up at one point because he got some deal to produce some video for Apple for, I think it was Jean-Louis Gasset's, like some big elaborate birthday party that was going on. And so I got involved in that, and so we had a bunch of meetings at Apple down there about it, and I got to know some people at Apple. And then when we started working on Photoshop, I called up a couple of friends at Apple for advice, and let's see, Jim Batson was one of them, Dave Fung was another. I'm probably forgetting a few, but there were some really nice, very helpful guys at Apple that had good advice, and they said, I think you guys should talk to Supermac, because at the time, I think Supermac was developing Pixel Paint, and when I first talked to Apple about it, we weren't quite sure what Photoshop was going to be. In fact, it wasn't even called Photoshop at that point. It was still called Display, and it could read and write a whole bunch of different image file formats. And so the initial pitch to Supermac was to bundle it as a file translation utility with Pixel Paint. And so we went and met with them, and I gave them a demo of what it could do, and they seemed interested, and they did some back-of-the-envelope calculations. Well, we figure we're going to be shipping about this many units Pixel Paint per month, and if we give you this royalty per copy, like, oh, man, that's real money. That's worth doing. And since we had this genuine interest, and it looked like that it was financially worthwhile, I called up Tom and said, oh, we got to do this.